Every parent's worst fear is failing to protect their child. But what if the greatest danger wasn't a stranger in the shadows, but the person you loved most? This is the story of Mike and Jean, a couple who longed for a family, and the little boy they adopted, Jason, who seemed like the answer to their prayers. It's a story of love, betrayal, and the devastating power of a single word spoken in a courtroom, where innocence met justice in the most unexpected way. Because sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, and sometimes it takes a child's voice to shatter the lies. Let us know where you're watching from and what time you found this video. In their dreams, Mike and Jean had always seen themselves as parents, with their small hands clinging to theirs, with bedtime tales, and with bruised knees kissed more affectionately. However, life had other things in store for us. Following the sad loss that Jean had with her ex-husband, the medical professionals cautioned her that another pregnancy may be very hazardous and even potentially deadly. The worry persisted like a shadow, expressing the possibility that she might never be able to become a mother. Following that, Sarah, a social worker at Children's Services and a childhood friend of Jean's, finally arrived. One evening, as they were enjoying a glass of wine, Sarah had informed them, adoption is not a second choice. You could see the sincerity in her eyes. It's a different path to the same love. Those comments of hers touched a nerve. After months of paperwork, background checks, and optimistic expectation, destiny sent them a miracle. A newborn boy called Jason, who was 6 days old and had been placed in foster care after his biological mother, who was unable to care for him, made the terrible decision to let him go. After holding him for the first time, Mike and Jean were immediately aware that he was theirs. There was a day of ruin after 5 years of love. Jason was a bright and inquisitive child when he was growing up, and his laughter filled their house like sunshine. In spite of this, Mike and Jean's marriage began to show signs of strain as time went on. During the frigid winter morning, Jean packed her things, and late-night fights took the place of whispered dreams earlier in the night. Far though the divorce was a catastrophe, the custody fight was far more difficult. For Jean, since she had loved him first, and for Mike, because he couldn't picture his life without him, Jason was something that both of them desired. There was a judge who would determine which of the two homes Jason would grow up in, and the court date was drawing near. The room was icy and antiseptic, the sound that completely transformed everything. The atmosphere in the courtroom was strained. During this time, Mike was sitting rigidly with his jaw set, and Jean was holding Sarah's hand for support. With his big eyes flitting between his parents, Jason, who was now 5 years old, fidgeted in his oversized suit. She was an elderly lady with piercing eyes, and she leaned forward in her chair. The question was posed in a soft voice. Jason, do you comprehend what is taking place today? The bottom lip of Jason's mouth trembled as he nodded. Is there anything you'd like to say? There is no sound. And then, Daddy, with a great deal of significance, the word lingered in the air. Jean's breath abruptly stopped. A lack of color appeared on Mike's face. There was a change in the judge's face. Jason, can you tell me what you mean by that? The little youngster paused for a while before muttering, Daddy. Does it hurt me? The courtroom was filled with a resounding gasp. The hands of Jean quickly moved to her lips. Mike sprang up, his chair squeaking in response. It's not Jason. That is not the case. The judge, however, had already signaled the bailiff to appear. Mr. Thompson, you will remain seated. She had a rock-solid voice. Bailiff, detain him. His complaints were drowned out by Jean's cries, and in a matter of seconds, Mike was placed in handcuffs. Jean's eyes were fixed on Jason, who was now weeping quietly, his little form shivering. Sarah threw her arm around her, but Jean's eyes remained fixed on Jason. What transpired after that was a nightmare. During the search of Mike's flat, the police discovered concealed cameras in Jason's bedroom. These cameras included film of horrible activities. It was discovered that Mike had been communicating with a murky network of predators via text messaging. The guy who Jean had loved and who she had put her faith in to bring up their kid was a monstrous person. However, what is the most unsettling discovery? In the past, Jason had attempted to convey this information to her. Several months before, while he was in preschool, he had created a drawing of a stick figure that was crying and had a bigger figure that was standing over him. Jason had been reticent in response to Jean's inquiry about it. It had been laughed aside by Mike. Kids have wild imaginations. Now, she was aware of the reality. As soon as Mike was locked up, Jean and Jason started the time-consuming process of getting well. The gradual return of light into their lives was brought about by therapy, patience, and love that was unconditional. Sarah, who was more of a sister than a friend at this point, jumped in to assist, and over the course of time, Jason's laughter returned, first cautious and then brighter and more free. What about Mike, then? Jason was never seen by him again. The judge looked him in the eye and stated, "You stole his innocence. This occurred during the sentencing process. Now you will be deprived of your liberty." Following that, the gavel was brought down. A number of years later, on Jason's 17th birthday, Jean presented him with a letter that she had written the night before the hearing concluded. The text stated, "You are so courageous. A single phrase may rescue you. I was rescued by a single phrase. And it is because of you that we are able to live the life that we were eternally destined to live." Jason gave her a firm embrace while maintaining a steady tone in his voice. "Love you, Mom," and this time, the word did not include any shadows. Rather, it contained just brightness. In the weeks that followed Mike's detention, Jean went through life in a state of total disorientation. A darkness that was beyond comprehension had been concealed by the man whom she had loved and whom she had placed her confidence in to be Jason's father. Now, every joyful memory seemed poisoned, and every snapshot seemed to be a lie. Jason, however, required her. The severity of the trauma was brought to light during therapy sessions. Because Jason was certain that Mike was still there in the room, he would wake up screaming. The sound of rising voices caused him to shudder, and he pulled away from male strangers. Bereft, but resolute, Jean decided to give up her career in order to devote her entire time to caring for him. From that point on, Sarah was a continuous presence in their life, and she assisted them in navigating the emotional and legal debris. It was then that the most difficult reality of all came to light. Jason was not Mike's first victim. Jean was summoned to the station by Detective Reyes, who was the primary investigator with regard to Mike's case during the afternoon. The look on his face was gloomy. While he was moving a file across the table, he made the statement, "We found something. Photos of additional youngsters, both boys and girls, all under the age of 10, all with the same empty expression in their eyes, were included inside the package." Jean became acquainted with a few individuals via Mike's volunteer work at the community center. Some of them were complete strangers. "We believe that he was a member of a network," Reyes told the audience. "The resources were shared by them. They are being located, but the process is moving at a snail's pace." A knot formed in Jean's tummy. How was it that she had failed to see it? Sarah gave her hand a gentle tap. "Jean, monsters do not have fangs on their teeth. One may see them smiling." A letter came just when Jean was beginning to believe that the horror was finally ended. There is no reply address. Only 3 words written in a sloppy handwriting style. "You're going to pay. Look out." Before the break-in, the cops thought it was just a hysterical occurrence. The sound of shattered glass was what roused Jean that morning. In an attempt to conceal herself, she grabbed Jason and hid in the closet while frantically phoning 911. The burglar had already fled by the time the police arrived, but not before leaving a disturbing message spray painted on the wall of Jason's bedroom. "He belongs to us from this point on." Detective Reyes took the danger very seriously. "Mike's associates know you're the key witness in his trial," he said to reporters. "They're trying to scare you into silence." Always the guardian, Sarah had a solution to the problem. "You must vanish from the scene. Until the trial, at the very least." Jean and Jason were able to move to a small seaside town with the assistance of witness protection. They were given new identities throughout this process. Jason was able to sleep through the night for the first time in a number of months. However, Jean was unable to rest, because she was aware of something that the authorities were not. This was the last time that Jean had gone through Mike's possessions before they departed. She discovered a USB drive concealing itself in a lockable box that was buried under the floorboards. One video file is included inside it. During the film, Mike could be seen conversing with a dark person that was off camera. "The boy was just the beginning," were the words that he said. "There are further ones." Additionally, the purchaser requires that they be delivered before the end of the month. A name comes next: Vincent Crowe. After doing a brief investigation, it was discovered that Crowe was a rich philanthropist who also owned multiple orphanages located offshore. Jean was aware of the actions that she needed to do. With Sarah's assistance, she disclosed the footage to a journalist who was doing an investigation. Within days, Crowe was taken into custody, and his empire of horrors was brought to light. Mike's trial was covered by the media on a national scale, and his sentence was increased to life in prison without the possibility of release. Is that Jason? He developed into a powerful adult, courageous. At the time of his high school graduation, he gave Jean a profound embrace. He hushed, "You saved me, Mom," as he said them. Her tears were brushed away. "I'm sorry, my darling. You have rescued us." After a number of years had passed, Jason was a kid advocate who stood in front of a crowd with a solid voice. He remarked, "One word changed the course of my life. One phrase has the power to alter yours. Take a stand. Make your voice heard. For the simple reason that quiet is the only thing that allows the monsters to triumph." Meanwhile, Jean, who was sitting in the front row, realized that the nightmare had at long last come to an end.